ما أريد من هذا الشعب إلا أن يزيد في الحمد والشكر إلى الله عز وجل، ويزيد من محبة الوطن، ويزيد من العمل ومضاعفة العمل لما يسعى فيه من خير له وللدولة والأهل. هذا اللي أنا أدوره من الشعب، وربنا إن شاء الله يوفقنا جميعا على ما يحب ويرضى.
تقرب منازلها إلا محب زايد أسسها واليوث وراها داروا على الدانات 7 أبد. إلا دار زايد لا تقرب حماها لا تقرب منازلها إلا محب زايد أسسها واليوث وراها داروا على الدانات 7 أبد. نحنا شعوب لها نفدى ثراها نبذل الغالي لها دوم ونهب. نحنا شعوب لها نفدى ثراها نبذل الغالي لها دوم ونهب. إلا دار زايد تاريخ لا تقرب حماها لا تقرب منازلها إلا محب زايد أسسها واليوث وراها داروا على الدانات 7 أبد.
From the heart of the United Arab Emirates, where vision meets ambition and excellence becomes a way of life. Welcome to Pearls of Union, a program that highlights inspiring leaders, innovators, and success stories shaping the future of our nation. Here we uncover journeys, ideas, and values that reflect the true spirit of the Union. In today's episode, we turn our focus to a story of growth, excellence, and dedication. So please welcome Ms. Oksana Tashakova, the co-founder of QPQ International. Welcome, Ms., and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. It is our pleasure. Well, Ms., today we will talk about such an important field. So you are operating in such a critical field. You are trying to connecting investors with sustainable projects globally. So sustainability actually is a global demand. We will talk later on about your company, about your work, but now we need more details about you to present you to everyone. So let's start from the very beginning. What were the key milestones in your academic and professional background?
Well, thank you. Well, I studied accounting and finance in New Zealand. I'm originally from Ukraine, but I went to New Zealand quite early. That's where I pursued my kind of academic, academic pursuits, put it this way. And that's where I did my university, as I said, in accounting and finance. Well, but that's where really, that was the place where I kind of got to love nature. You know, New Zealand is really beautiful. The nature there is gorgeous, you know, it's green, and there are not too many people also, you know, so you would get to hiking, ocean, beaches, beautiful place. So that's where I spent, I think, almost 11 years, and that's where my kind of initial career steps were developed. So the key milestones are, well, I think that because I kind of explored a lot, you know, because I academically, if I kind of set myself a goal, I can pursue it, but I also genuinely kind of motivated by passion, you know, so if I don't feel it from inside, I cannot really kind of forced myself to do it, put it this way. So at the beginning, when I started in accounting and finance, I just felt hollow and I didn't really like it. I could not really connect with the corporate kind of culture. And that would actually led me later to become a leadership coach and executive coach. And I had a company where we are facilitating leadership training and team building, and essentially increasing engagement and level of happiness in workspace. Because I also did. My life been also kind of almost like a journey of ongoing learning, nonstop. And it's from different field essentially, because I did not only like banking and account finance and so on, but I also, ventured into clean energies, right? But there is a big chunk of my life also was dedicated to empowerment and essentially improving work conditions in the workplace. And because I have postgraduate diploma in organization development. So that's what actually, and then of course, leadership training, executive coaching and so on. So I took all those skills to make people happy at work and make them more productive and more effective essentially. But that's was, I loved what I did at the time, when I did, when I pursued this, but, kind of entering, kind of not forcing, but enabling change in organization, you actually stumble upon a lot of resistance because change, people resist change. When there is a status quo and you try to create some change, you have to, so I, in a way, while I loved what I did, I got kind of tired having to fight, people that are clinging to status quo. It became quite tiring for me at the time. And then I thought, well, listen, I love to actually help people one-on-one and seeing how you kind of, when they get engaged and they reconnect to the purpose, the passion of, why I'm doing what I'm doing, or what makes me happy in this life, what I'm the best at, and so on, right? It's wonderful. But at the same time, it comes at cost, Yeah. Yes. The thing is that I think it's more like having to work through, toxic companies, cultures and and politics, and that's a lot of it, unfortunately. So anyway, I kind of thought, okay, well, that's all great, but at heart, I always wanted to make kind of world a better place. I mean, from very early childhood, I was very passionate about animals and welfare of animals, but also nature, So I knew always that it's great, and, like helping human beings with workplace was great, but I knew somewhere deep in my heart that my calling is this, I want to help our planet. And I didn't know it in which way, because sustainability and energy is not my, field that originally I studied. Yeah. So it somewhat just happened where we essentially with my business partner and my brother, he's my, biggest supporter and been kind of along with, with me in my life, um, forever, since the time she was born. But anyway, so how we came across, for sustainability, I knew that I want to make a difference, right? And I was writing about, sustainability, raising consciousness that we need to take responsibility for our planet, that we need to be more aware about our consumption. We need to be aware about how much waste we produce and other things. But I realized speaking is speaking cheap, as we say it, right? So then I was thinking, what would be the most impactful way what could I do that would actually make the most difference? And then I thought, wow, so it's enabling, because there are so many amazing projects in the world, but many of them, big percentage of them actually perish and go nowhere because of lack of funding, because they don't know how to obtain funds. No, and I know the bankers have their own language, that you need to understand. So, of course, especially when you talk about engineers or innovators, and some people in science, they have completely different set of skills, So then, of course, they excel and they're brilliant in creating or inventing something, but they have no idea of how to actually, package. Because I'm a marketer, even though I did accounting and finance, but it's a kind of I most of my life been essentially, as I said, even with human system, when I did my career in transformation and coaching and other things, right? The biggest part was that I also realized that you need to know how to market your business. You can be great at what you do, but if you don't know how to market your business and communicate effectively, you will not get clients. So you can be amazing, but if you don't have clients, then essentially your skills is wasted. And then, by the way, that's why I also taught a lot to SMEs and smaller kind of startups about how to package your business and how to. I'm sorry, I'm so sporadic and I'm all over the place. I don't want to confuse you, and I want to kind of keep the more kind of like a more chronological line. But let's go back to why we're here, right? So this falling for the sustainability I felt from very early age, although I didn't know how it will actually pan out. And now it's took this shape where and started where I answered the question, okay, what would be the biggest impact? And biggest impact is helping green energy projects with funding. Funding is something that I understood, and in my business partner and brother also had, strong background in that. So we both had a good, strong marketing and also, ability to kind of, build team, ability to yeah, exactly, so that's where that's where it started, where we started our business during COVID, so so during Corona, exactly. It was a tough time, but essentially we were locked in and we were connecting with all of the world. We just identified stakeholders that we want to connect with, and that was investors in green energy space as well as developers. And we were working like 17 hours a day, because, just like back to back meetings, talking to people, and sharing our vision. And about, essentially, because initially we started as a digital platform. We built a digital platform as an ecosystem for green energy space. Then we realized that the vision was too large and we didn't have funding. You would need a lot of money we're not LinkedIn or Amazon, even when you look at Amazon, when you build the platform, it's many, many years of, and many, many millions, hundreds of millions of investments, right? So we started as a digital platform, realized that we would need more money. I didn't want to attract external investors at the time. It would be too early, wanted to grow organically. So we actually relying on our own forces, somewhat pivoted backwards, built.
So, Miss, I'm sure that you have your own strategies to lead your business in a better way. So, let's talk about the company's evolution. How has the company evolved since its inception, and what kind of solutions that you are providing today to your customers?
Well, evolution, oh my gosh. I have to say that when I when my vision and my purpose was essentially forming inside of me throughout my formative years, and I never envisaged having so much turbulence in our world as we're having now, right? So um, I kind of wanted to see, of course, me and my business partner wanted to kind of make a difference and contribute to the world and other things, but I never realized what a tough challenge it would be, And number one, energy I didn't intentionally end up doing energy, but energy seemed like the most kind of critical, you know, commodity, put it this way, and most important element in sustainability, right? So we were pulled into it automatically. But then with that, there were so many elements that we needed to learn. That is, we are not engineers, or we are not, so we both have, like, my business partner has a marketing and management background. I have finance background. So we had to learn a lot, so very quickly taking courses about green energy. And then, of course, imagine a woman working with engineers and scientists, and mostly you will be surprised, and I was surprised myself, that 95% of the industries are males, and they're all like 50 plus. So when you're a woman and you are younger, everyone is surprised to see you there, and especially if you're in the leadership position. I was myself thinking, okay, I didn't realize that. So if I would see a woman in the, in any meeting, in any meeting, I would be surprised, to be honest, and would be like cheering. When I was building my team, it was difficult because it was primarily 90% males. Then I started making a point of actually looking out and bringing women into the team. But just to say that, yeah, it's I don't know, those who build businesses, they actually know how challenging it is. We grew, relying on our own resources. We never kind of raised any funding. So essentially we grew organically, bootstrapped. We had to. We started our business during COVID. You understand how many challenges that was. As we were forced to build business remotely, and but it's also helped us to build international, global business, because essentially we could connect from where we are. We were here in Dubai, connecting to people all over the world. Yes, and essentially working with the centers and countries that support green energy transition. And yes, so essentially, if you remember, I told you we started launching a platform, and we wanted to create ecosystem for green energy players, and then facilitate investments digitally. But then realized that there is that there is a lack of trust, and people still require a lot of, especially here, people require a lot of human involvement. Not here, I'm talking about not here in UAE, but in this industry. There is a lot, it's a heavy know-how industry, as well as people need to understand who they're dealing with, So facilitating this digitally didn't really appear doable and viable at the time. We realized that we needed to do some sort of cross and something hybrid, put it this way, of human and digital. So that's where we actually had to build quite a strong back office or back end team, where we built a team of engineers and people with a strong banking and finance background. So that's how we started with the digital, but then had to build a whole team based on that, and what it will pull on, because we realized that if we want to succeed, we really needed to become expert at it. And of course, we had to learn how to grow business and grow network, because we had to grow our investor network. We needed to grow our developer network, essentially, because we want to have a good quality projects. You want to have also good, strong relationship with investors, but also, most importantly, you need to have a strong team in the middle of it that can actually, because it's a fire, and this is what I would like to talk a little bit later, if you can remind me. But this is not only about having a project and investors. When people say you're connecting or introducing developers and investors, it's so far from it, because it's only beginning. It's only 5% of maybe 3% of what we do, because most work is done when you actually work with a project, when you groom the project, when you help project identify its weaknesses, how to optimize the project for it to be more viable and more profitable, how to look through the technical specification, and how to eliminate or mitigate risks. There are so many things that you need to take into account, and help developers. And you see what happens in this. So if you think about oil and gas, it's quite a consolidated industry, and it's already kind of only big players that actually participate, right? Because it's a very old industry and it's well consolidated, right? Here with green energy, there are a lot of nascent kind of players, because it's a relatively new industry, right? So what happens is that the industry is quite kind of fragmented in some way, which actually gives opportunity for nascent entrepreneurs and innovators to actually come to play and bring their talents and show the world what they can do. This is regarding, maybe technologies that they are coming up. It can be maybe because we support renewable energy full spectrum. That's solar, wind project. Then we support waste energy or projects that is, that essentially it can be waste to value, waste to, there are many projects within the waste to energy sector there, then we support projects like sustainable aviation fuel, biogas, biomass, biodiesel. There are so many, projects within this. And then, of course, hydrogen production and energy storage, so it's essentially full spectrum of green energy. And I know there is some sort of, it's quite broad spectrum. I mean, we are focusing specifically on green energy, but now we're kind of taking a couple of pillars where we become like real experts, and that is essentially solar and battery storage. That's where we are more, we're focusing the most, even though we have capabilities in our team to cover full spectrum. And I make sure that so our team is kind of and consists of all requisite skills to actually help project to be fully ready for investment. So the challenge of most projects is that they, as I said earlier, they're brilliant and they're good at developing projects, but often they actually don't know what investors need. They look at from practical perspective of, okay, what do I need to develop project? But they don't think how investors think. And investors think completely different. And you need to, you need to adopt even language of investors. You need to prepare projects in such a way that it will be attractive for investors. So that's where there is depth, this very deep depth that at first, and that's why so many projects, they actually never secure funding from professional investors. And unfortunately, with the green energy project, because they are such a high value project that, normally the value of project, I mean, it's minimum $10 million. I mean, there are smaller projects, of course, but we work with a utility scale project that is $10 million and there is no upper limit. I mean, there are projects that are, $1 or $2 billion projects, multi-billion. There are hydrogen production projects are multi-billion dollar projects. Well, having said that, we of course do have our kind of like a sweet spot. We prefer to work with projects from about 50 million US dollars to about $500 million. This is because otherwise those projects become multi-step and they take years and years, so, we prefer to have something that we can see through, put it this way, and see it in construction. And otherwise, some hydrogen production projects can take 5-6 years easily. Some of them taking up to 10, Unfortunately, with the legislative delays and turbulence and volatility that we've seen, and then of course we've seen so far, right? And then going back to what I told you, right? We started our company during COVID, and then you've seen what's been going on in the world ever since, So we've had COVID, then we had the war in Ukraine, that took place. Then, of course, and everything else, the conflict in Ukraine essentially took energy, market and put it upside down, because the prices just went so high, and it was just such a shock to energy market that no one knew actually what's going on and what's going to happen. The prices kept on climbing, and investors never saw any, they didn't have anything to compare. So no one knew when it will actually stop. So investors were kind of frozen and didn't know, what kind of offers to make. And developers at the same time thought that, that prices will go to, never stop, that everything has its own price, right? And then, of course, after that, then we saw the energy deficit. There's been too much energy produced. And then we ended up with the energy curtailment. Curtailment is when you produce too much energy and you cannot put it to the grid. So then they had to essentially, developers don't know what to do with this energy. Then they had to come up with a battery storage, where you have to essentially store the energy. If you don't, you cannot kind of sell it to the grid. So there's been a lot of complexity, because as a new industry evolving, balancing supply and demand, balancing a lot of geopolitical and market tension. It's been a hell of a ride, I can tell you.
Yes, based on your experiences in this field and in your opinion, what makes your platform apart from other investment advisory platforms in the sustainability sector?
Well, this is a great question. And to be frank, this is a question that I had to answer and not only answer, but execute and implement in every kind of level on every level in my organization and in my team. And that is historically this industry been kind of structured in such a way that advisories used to be industry agnostic. That is, they essentially advise many different industries. But in order to really advise, you need to have a very kind of deep knowledge and understanding of what you're advising, right? You at least need to know better of who you're advising, right? So when you work in such industry, like for example, that doesn't require, like, it's not too complicated. For example, maybe it's retail, hospitality. Another thing, I'm not. It's also quite a complicated and multi-dimensional industry. But when you talk about say energy or green energy, it's innovation, it's science, it's there are so many things, so it's chemistry, it's everything. All sciences can be kind of combined and bundled in one. But not only that, there is also commercial elements, financial elements, economic, political, legislative, every single thing that actually every single kind of layer of the or fabric of the world that actually exists is somehow connected to this. Because essentially, imagine that if you build an energy project, you also need to negotiate with with the community that they accept you being there. You need to think about environment, how you're infecting that environment. You need to think about the process that you are actually employing to convert that energy into, green energy into energy that flows in the grids, for example, right? So it's incredibly, incredibly complicated. And I have to say that, well, once upon a time I was investing, and I still do, part-time in real estate. And I kind of thought, okay, I'm not going to do real estate full-time because it feels not challenging. I don't feel kind of intellectually kind of challenged, and I got myself into this, and I'm saying, oh, well done. This was the most challenging thing that you could ever imagine. And I think, like, okay, well, you made a choice, then stick with this. I'm just saying that it has been a really, really, well, as I said, hell of a ride. It has been very, very challenging, not from perspective only to build a business, but also, of course, unanticipated volatility and the events that are taking place in the world that are actually affecting our business and every other business, but particularly energy. And this is particularly relevant now as we are sitting here today. So it has been yes. So what make us different? What make us different is that we created a very deep competence in this specific subject. So I made a point of building very, very strong team and expertise on the technologies that we're advising. So so if we take a project, for example, in waste to energy or hydrogen, there is a really experienced hydrogen or waste to energy expert in my team who has at least 20 plus years experience developing the project, advising them. But also not only that, not only very, very niche kind of technology knowledge, but also market knowledge. So you need to understand, because each country that you work with or participate in has its own unique legislation, and this legislation is actually updated on daily basis, and things change on daily basis. So then, as a result, we actually have been kind of also making executive decisions to kind of go even more narrow. And that's why I said to you, even though we support kind of green energy projects, but we specialize in solar and battery storage projects, and that's mostly in Europe. I mean, we do have support projects, in Australia sometime. We have good experts for Australia and US, but US been also quite volatile, with the changes in the office and their position on green energy. That has been quite impacted, but Europe consistently had kind of support and definite clear need for green energy, so that's where we are focusing. So essentially we are very, very specialized in the green energy, and we have a very deep expertise to help green energy project developers to make their project bankable, viable, and investor, presentable to investors. So essentially, very often we look at the project and it may have some risks, and the developer doesn't know how to mitigate those risks, right? So we have a risk mitigation strategist in the team, so then that can advise how to structure, because project finance is also for infrastructure projects is incredibly complicated, and also it's quite a relatively new discipline, for when we're not talking about like public PPPs, for example. We're talking about when private equity invest into kind of projects, in private hands, right? So there are a lot of complexities that involved, and so we learn every day. But of course, having a group of experts specifically focused and having experience in this specific thing that you're working with, rather than having, supporting all industries, because most of big fours, and the big consulting firms, they essentially are industry agnostic. They support all the industries. Where we are boutique, we are boutique company that supports specifically green energy, and we have very deep knowledge in the specific sector.
Okay, that sounds interesting. Actually, you are operating in such a challenging and ever-evolving field. So I can say that you are a successful female entrepreneur working in a male-dominated field. So based on your experiences, Miss, what words of encouragement or guidance you would like to convey through our episode to female entrepreneurs and also to young professionals aspiring to join this field and to the new generation in general?
Well, I can give a long answer or a short answer. I can say so much about this, but my advice is, if you're female in your own business, you don't need to become a male to succeed. You can be a female, and you can be I think the key is there is no need to be in competition. We are not competition with men. We should work together in harmony. And what enabled me to succeed and build such strong team, essentially where I lead, 35 people, and most of them are males, and most of them are, over 50, is by not competing with them, and they understand that it's not about ego. It's about us creating something together. I built it in a very democratic way, where I often approached and talked to some that I feel that can be my mentors, and I learn from them. So when they see that I'm not trying to overpower them, or it's not about some sort of power play, or I tell you what to do and so other things, but we are creating something together, then people are they buy into your vision and your passion, and then they become your friends and the people who share your journey and and then help you build it together. So I encourage, if you want to if you try to overpower someone and just and then of course it comes from my postgraduate in human system and other things, so I got this as part of my education, and I know that for some females is maybe who come from different background is not so easy because they didn't learn it. But my advice is just let go and just be yourself, live your passion, and yes, be authentic. I think it's not, I found so often myself in situation when I didn't know, and if I would had impose on myself this need or persona that I need to know always everything, I would feel like a fool all the time. But because I didn't, and people saw me that I'm not trying to win over someone, I'm not trying to be smarter than anyone, I just want to make a difference. And I just say, guys, let's do it together, help me do it. And then when people see it, then they genuinely want to help you. So ever since, I have not had a sense that someone want to undercut me, disrespect me, or it's been just it's been, I cannot say it has been easy, because you always have to show strengths as a leader. You always have to show strengths, and you need to model the behavior that you want to see in your team. People need to see that you live and breathe what you say, because otherwise you are incongruent. So, but then if you are congruent, if you're truly passionate and you're really humble and you truly believe in what you do, then people will just follow you naturally.
Thank you so much, Ms. Oksana, for your motivation message and for your inspiring words. Well, as we come to the end of our episode, I would like to invite you to share a message of appreciation and gratitude to the UAE and its rulers.
Well, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity, because I take this opportunity, everyone I'm given it, not only to the camera, but to my friends and my colleagues, people I speak to all over the world when I travel. I'm very proud to be living in UAE now since 2008. This is a long time. Originally when I came, I thought it won't be a long time, but now I cannot imagine living anywhere else. I'm proud and I love this place, and I'm incredibly grateful to UAE leaders for making such a beautiful place for all nations to live, and thrive and feel safe and don't feel any kind of prejudice towards each other. So, and I think that UAE is truly a miracle, and I'm really proud to be living here. And I really thank UAE leaders for this amazing creation.
Thank you very much, Ms. Oksana, for being a part of our program and for sharing your success story. It was my pleasure talking with you today. Wish you all the best.
Thank you very much for having me.
We would like to sincerely thank our distinguished guest for this valuable discussion. We hope this episode has provided you with new insights and inspiration. Stay tuned for upcoming episodes for more enlightening conversations, and goodbye.
وام الشي